Digital certificates is a part of advanced cryptography, um, and how they act, react, are used, managed between certificate signatures and what we call PKI. Now, basically, get the basic stuff out of the way. Cryptography encrypts information, ensures that it is going to be properly sent and received. The person sending is the person who they say they are. Sender is who they say they are. And that information is then jumbled up into words, pictures, whatever the person holds necessary to ensure that that data transfer is going to happen. Cryptography should be a part of any security policy that is in place between a company and its patrons. Digital certificates. This basically contains all the information that about the user. Typically contains their name, their public key. It also, on the other end, gives the name of the issuer, whether it be a company or a person or software. The digital signature, which, by the way, nobody can change a digital signature. So you are who you say you are, like your fingerprint identifies you. A signature identifies the sender or receiver. Serial number of the certificate so that it can be identified, and expiration of the public key, because you never want a public key that does not simply expire. Now, first one up is certificate authority in managing digital certificates. This basically identifies, gives some general rules associated to generate and publish that information. It might provide a means to subscribers. It could also revoke a public key and stop that information from coming. If you've ever bought a car, the title you receive that says the car is yours, and that limited information that's on it, like your name and address, what it is, how much it weighs, etc. Very similar to what a CA or a certificate authority does. Now, your registration authority portion, this basically allows receive, authenticate, and process certificate revocation requests. Honestly, it gives out the keys so that the people can be identified there and here. The biggest form of that, or the most general form of that, is going to be through email. You send an email to the person that you want to send it to. Wants to stop that email from stopping somewhere in between. The registration authority takes care of that for you. Certificate repository is basically centralized, or a directory that can be managed locally. It's a storage area that's connected to a CA server, which again identifies that particular person and thing. Certificate revocation is basically, you break up the word revoke. This is a certificate that handles the certificates that have been revoked, that are no longer good and are expired, or something happened, so they were canceled, whatever, or however that happens. This is the portion of the digital certificates that handles. So if you're trying to view something and that certificate is expired, this stops that communication from happening. Now, there are basically four different types of digital certificates. There's your Class 1, which is your personal certificate. They are issued directly by the RA, and they secure, say, email transmissions. Typically, only require the user's name, email address in order to receive their certificate. The Class 2 is sent out by the server. The server sends these out to the person trying to access the information, identifying that they are who they say they are. Um, it's basically the web browser, say Gmail, talking to the person who is trying to access their email account, says, "Hi, you are who you say you are," goes back and says, "Yes, I'm this person." The server verifies that that is true, sends back, sends them basically the key to unlock the door, and then the user uses that key to unlock the door to look at the message. Specifically, that's basically how that happens. The next class is Class 3. This is sent out by software, and generally it just ensures that the program has not been tampered with. So, downloading WinZip off the internet. Class 3 digital certificate's going to verify that that program got there and that nothing else other than that program was included in there and nothing was attached to it. Now, the X.509 digital certificate is internationally recognized as a standard. Lots of people are using this, or organizations, as a means for digital certificates. So any company would basically be safe to go about this route, as it is becoming more and more recognized and widely accepted, as it does carry a number of authenticity checklists, per se, to get the different serial numbers, validities, your public keys. It has some different unique IDs associated with it, and signature. So you are. It does a good job as proving who you are, or that you say who you are. Now, the public key infrastructure, or the PKI, as mentioned earlier, is the portion that manages all these different certificates together. It's how these are given out, how they are issued. Now, they are the framework for all the entries involved in the digital certificate. Basically, how your house is built is how these models are in turn given out. As far as the chain of starting, say, at the roof and the rafters and going on down to the floor, how this is all put together, these models are what directs that. So you have a trust model, the direct trust model. Me and my friend have a direct trust with one another, so we can share that information and not be, hopefully, not be afraid of who else might get it. Then there's the third-party trust. This one might be a little bit more complicated to explain, but basically the idea is, let's say my friend knows somebody and I don't know them, but because my friend knows them, then I should be able to trust them. That is a third-party trust, or as noted, through another source. The hierarchical trust model is where there is one CA, there's one CA that hands out certificates to everybody, hands out a public key to everybody. Now, the issue here is that if that key gets lost, then then nobody gets anything. Um, because, well, obviously you need that key for that certificate. Um, so you have the one giving out everything. And it's going to be good for smaller businesses or smaller instances. Definitely not the way you want to go about it if you are a larger organization or group. Now, there's the distributed trust model, to where you have one main CA, and it is controlling the smaller CA, and they are giving out all the different little certificates. Now, again, if the key is lost between the main CA and the CAs that are giving out all the keys, then that entire chain is broken up. Which leads me to the bridge trust model. This is probably the most popular for large organizations, in that you have several different CAs. You may have a certificate authority giving out certificates. You may have a certificate authority working or giving out certificates to other CAs to give out certificates to other public keys, and those two main certificate authorities are joined together by that bridge. Now, with that chain, that's like having two chains on the same item. If one chain is broke, you still have a chain connected, so you're not losing everything, you're only losing part until you can get that other chain up and going, and then be able to hand out those other certificate authorities, getting them to work again throughout your process. Now, certificate policies are necessary with regards to this, and that the rules that govern the operation of PKI need to be noted. You cannot just say this is how it's gonna happen without a set of rules to govern the operation. Just like you have a security policy, you have to have a policy to handle your certificates. That way, it just basically describes how that certificate authority is going to use and manage all these certificates that you're either going to be giving out or using. Now, it's basically general rule of thumb that these certificates have what's called a life cycle. The certificate, once the user is identified, is created, and then that's when the information is then put onto the certificate. When it's created, when it expires, and different things that are involved from there. Now, with the life cycle, certificates can be suspended, which is temporary. Gives you the option to pull somebody off because of some suspicious activity, somebody got tampered with, whatever the case may be. We can suspend that, or you can suspend that, so that it's temporary unavailable, and you will not be able to send and receive that information because you are not identified as that person. Now, there's the revocation process, or revoke, where it is permanently taken away, so that you're never allowed to use that particular signature and certificate, and that will then put you clear back to square one, where you'll have to be identified again and verify that it is really who you say you are, and then you'll get that certificate and be able to send and receive messages or documents. Every certificate does have an expiration. Once that expiration is met, the certificate can no longer be used. You should always be leery, though. If you are looking at a certificate that is good for 50 years, there's probably an issue, and you need to get rid of it. So that concludes the presentation on the advanced cryptography, digital certificates, trust models, etc. A little bit more technology and techie based stuff that we're talking about. However, it is necessary for any group, especially those who are sending and receiving sensitive information or documents over a specific network. Thanks for listening.